My name is Whitney Yerina, and I am the summer 2025 Marketing Communications intern. Today, we're sitting down with two of Boviteq Beef's interns to learn more about their experiences, insights, and the impact of their work. Let's start with some introductions. Can you each share your name, where you're from, your background in the beef industry, where you've attended college, and what your future plans are?
So I guess I'll kick things off. My name is Benjamin Archer. I grew up on a small cat-calf operation in southwestern Pennsylvania, primarily focusing in Shorehorn and Sematol show genetics, as well as dabbling in a few club calves as well. I went to Lakeland College in Mattoon, Illinois for junior college, and just recently graduated in May from Kansas State University. And actually, starting this Friday, looking into the future, I'm going to start in a contracted position as a beef sales specialist with Boviteq.
Yep, and then I'm Matthew Bruns. I'm originally from North Platte, Nebraska, where me and my brothers, we own and operate Bruns Brothers Livestock, where we primarily raise Hereford cattle as well as some Southdown sheep. I went to junior college at Northeastern Junior College, where I was a part of the livestock judging team there, and I'll currently be a senior at Kansas State University.
Awesome. We're very excited to have you guys on the podcast today. So, let's kind of talk about your internship journey. What motivated you both to apply for this internship?
The motivation to me to want to join Boviteq was probably about 5 years ago. My family started using Boviteq as our sole company we worked with for our IVF services that we do here at home. We'll flush, 4 or 5 cows a year, and that's really added value to our herd. And when we came to Boviteq, we'd come over and we were in search of, better conception rates and a higher quality frozen embryo. And to say we've been overjoyed with the results at Boviteq would be to, put it pretty minimally. We have just been absolutely in love with everything we've seen. And so, a couple years ago, when I saw the opportunity for the beef sales internship, that really excited me. And I wanted to get to be a part of a company that's worked so hard for us. I wanted to put myself back to work for them. So I went through the application process and the interview process twice, actually. I'm a two-time applicant for the internship and was fortunate and blessed enough to get to run around on the road with Matt this summer. So it was really cool to get to be a part of the Boviteq brand.
Yep, and then I applied for the Boviteq internship. The Herefords have a event called Bridging the Gap, where it's a college and career fair. That's where I got the opportunity to talk to 𝗕𝗢𝗗𝗘 and 𝗕𝗢𝗙𝗘, where they really sparked my interest in working with Boviteq.
What are your guys' main responsibilities as Boviteq Beef interns?
Some of the main responsibilities that me and Ben had this summer was basically to talk to as many people as we could to spread the word about Boviteq. And I think me and Ben, we both agreed that we just had one of our biggest responsibilities was educating a lot of people about the IVF process. When we're talking to people, a lot of them don't know exactly what IVF was. So majority of our conversations were just explaining the IVF process, but then we got the opportunity to talk to them about why Boviteq is the greatest.
Absolutely. I really like how Matt put that because we can't do the promotion component of what we were asked to in the internship without you doing the education component. You know what I mean? And we had a lot of people come to us that had maybe, they're doing AI, they might be doing a little conventional embryo transfer at home, but they wanted to know what the difference was in the IVF process and more specifically what made Boviteq different. So getting to promote the Boviteq brand, like I said, and like Matt just kind of hit on, was definitely our big responsibilities.
Really awesome. Yeah. So I did see on the Bovitech Facebook page that you guys were pretty active at Junior Nationals over the summer. So let's dive a little deeper into that experience. What was your favorite city that you visited during Junior Nationals?
I think for me, my favorite city, and although all of them were incredible and we had great conversations, favorite for me would be Louisville when I went down for Mankey Junior Nationals. As Matt will probably hit on, that was the week we split up. He went to Showhorns, I went to Mankeys in Louisville. And that was a really great time because it really felt like Bobitech had a very large presence at that Junior National, but also the involvement we got to have at that Junior National. I believe it was on Monday of that week, Bobitech sponsored a snack and we gave out about 700 bags of popcorn. So getting to have a lot of youth outreach and, investing in the youth at Main Key Junior Nationals and at every junior national we went to with the water bottle program that we did this year, I thought it was a really great time. And that was also an incredible opportunity where we got to go and talk about some new and exciting programs on the beef side of Bovitech, like biopsy, and how we could roll those into some main and key herds. So that was definitely my favorite for sure.
Yeah, my favorite was definitely when I got to go to the home state in Nebraska when me and Ben split up. I thought that was the most engaging junior national that I went to, at least, and I thought we had great conversations at both. And I really enjoyed going there as well because I got the opportunity with 𝗕𝗢𝗓𝗓 to talk on the Walton webcast and talk about Boviteq there. So that was really fun as well.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like a really great time to get to travel around and see some different places. So, can you guys walk me through like a typical day during junior nationals?
Yeah, so the typical day, me and Ben will leave the hotel around 8 a.m. and that's when we'll set up booth and make sure we have all our literature set out. And then people really start rolling into the booth around 9:30. So then we talk to people all throughout the day. And once the day kind of finishes up around 5, and that's when people are mainly sitting in the barn. So me and Ben, we'd go out and walk around basically every aisle and talk to as many people as we could there.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was, the days were not all the same, but they were similarly structured, like Matt said, getting in, getting our promotional material ready, getting the TV set up with whether that would be shows or Bovitech slideshows for the day, so that we had a way to help draw people into the booth, and then really having those barn conversations at the end of the evening. Those were all some of the overlapping components that were pretty similar, whether we were in Springfield, Missouri, or Louisville, or Madison, anywhere across the globe.
Great. Yeah. So, with these Facebook Lives that you guys hosted, so how did you prepare for those when speaking with exhibitors?
Yeah, the lives were, interesting to prepare for. And the first one that Matt and I did, we did ourselves. And then from there, we started to recruit people to come in and join us for the lives. Kind of the preparation we do for that is sitting down, looking up farm websites, and now more so than websites, looking at farm Facebook pages, studying wins, sale results, everything we could track down to have some information on these folks and what they've been doing. Then we would also turn to the Bovitech app. We've got the awesome Bovitech app now in our pocket that we can utilize for all those results. And so as we started this summer, they gave Matt and I access to almost all of the beef client information that we have in the system. And so we were able to utilize that to look and see how people's results have been going, whether that was a conversation starter for a live or just to talk to somebody back in the barns. We could also use that to see, like we talked about, how results have been going, but sometimes we also used it to track down breeders. Sometimes if we went to a show and weren't exactly certain, like, hey, who are some Charolais breeders that might be at Charolais Junior Nationals that utilize Bovitech? That was a bit of a challenge. So we sat down and we started sifting through the system, and eventually we were like, well, hey, now Chris and Brooke Polzine with Polzine Embryo Center in Darwin, Minnesota. Not only do they utilize our services, put in our embryos, exhibit cattle that are made from those embryos, but they're also a satellite center that partners with Bovitech. So utilizing that information to track down people to talk to was kind of the process we'd go through.
Awesome. Yeah. So, did you notice any recurring themes or concerns like from exhibitors that you spoke with at those junior nationals?
I mean, some reoccurring themes. I think it kind of swings back to the education component that Matt hit on earlier. There's so many misconceptions about the IVF industry, whether that be jumbo calves, the use of FSH, media blends, how we use FSH, why we use FSH. And so a lot of people have different misconceptions about that. Maybe it's from past experiences, maybe it's from a friend of a friend told a friend that they had a poor experience. And so I think the education component was the biggest way we could combat those misconceptions or different ideas or perceptions about how things work in IVF.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Ben. The perception, people are nervous about starting new technology. So it's trying to calm them down and really get them to understand the whole process. Once they understand the whole process, then they're more willing to adapt the new technology.
Yeah, definitely. So, what marketing goals were kind of tied into your participation with these live events?
Yeah, I think our biggest goal was just to reach as many people this past summer. Me and Ben, we had the goal of doing 3 live streams, and we ended up with 5, I believe. But just talking or getting our name out there as much as we could. I think we had over 20,000 views this past summer over our Facebook Live. So I think we did a great job at just the mass outreach of people and just talking to people in different sides of the industry. So with TWG and Jared Carroll, he had more of a commercial background, while when we talked to Chris Polzine, he had more of a satellite perspective from it.
Absolutely. My goal kind of coming into it was putting faces to the Bovitech brand. If you think about the way that Bovitech is structured, our clients are going to work with their partnering veterinarian, and they might talk to Kaylin and Marcus or Chantel or Riley or Dave Powell. They might talk to one of those people over the phone, but there's not often going to be a face put to where those oocytes are going or where those embryos are coming from. we wanted to use the lives as a way to reach out and kind of put a face to the Bovitec brand and the Bovitec name. Because, to me, some facial recognition for somebody to have the ability to say, hey, maybe this flush didn't go the way I wanted to. Let me call Riley and see how we can fix that. Or, hey, I got some awesome results I want to share. Like, let me call Dave and talk to him about that. So, by doing these, like I said, we wanted to put a face to the Bovitec brand so that people felt more comfortable and a more friendly atmosphere with what was going on.
Yeah, that definitely helps build trust, I think, within the cattle community, really. So let's talk a little bit about like what you guys have learned and how your internship has really shaped your future goals. So, what was the most interesting that you learned during your internship?
To me, one of the most interesting components was I remember in the first week we were blessed enough to get to sit down with Dr. Chantel Campbell and everybody in the office and learn. We had about a week long crash course on this is Bovitec, this is our history, this is why we do this, this is how this gets done, and an overview of the whole repro process. But as we talked about that, one name kept coming back up, and that was the biopsy process. Getting to learn about how biopsy has been done in dairy cattle for years and years, and now we're rolling it into the beef sector. And that was one of the components I talked about earlier in this interview that I got to discuss with main and key producers, the biopsy process, where we can go in and we can study genetic scripts on these animals when they are in embryo form. And if something is defective with them, we don't have to put those in recipient cows, or we could target the best genomic value animals in those embryo forms as well. Getting to learn about that process, how it's done, and more importantly, how I and how Matt and I could take that information and promote it to producers to help, increase the number of live high value cattle they could generate, which adds value back to their operation. I thought that was just an incredible thing to learn.
Yeah, and for me, I've never really done any IVF work on my own herd here, so I didn't. I came from a background that I didn't have a lot of knowledge about a lot of repro work. So I think it was just great to work with Ben and Chantel throughout the summer, learning everything there is to know about cattle IVF.
So, how has this internship shaped your future career goals?
Yeah, I think it's really helped me in the communication aspect. Maybe I was more of an introvert before, but talking to people in the booth every single day and getting myself out there talking to people and helping them understand about Bobitech and our process.
I agree, and as I said at the beginning, I'm getting to start into a bit of a sales position with Bovitec starting Friday, and that's really exciting to me. When I was a kid, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I would bounce back and forth between lawyer, maybe a race car driver, and then the older I got, them, and we got more involved in the embryo transfer field at our farm here at home. I grew a deeper interest and a deeper passion for that. And that getting to be a beef sales intern this summer, that really solidified that interest. And I now know that I'm super excited and passionate and motivated about the reproduction industry and how we as a company can continue to advance that forward and make the best even better.
Yeah, and huge congratulations to you, Ben, on
Thank you.
this career exception. So that's really awesome. Not no race car driver, but
No,
pretty awesome still.
absolutely.
So within internships also comes teamwork. So what was the team dynamic like at Bovitech?
So, especially out on the road this summer with Matt, it was kind of funny. I don't think that, maybe Chantel and Riley pieced it all together until a few weeks before the internship started. But not only were Matt and I both K-Staters, Matt and I actually shared a backyard there on Northfield Road in Manhattan. And so we actually already knew each other. Matt's older brother, Blake, was on my judging team at Kansas State. And so Matt and I knew of each other, and we would hang out every once in a while and see each other around. But we weren't as close as I'd say we are now. The dynamic of getting to sit down in a car and spend an entire summer with somebody that you kind of knew of but didn't know that much of, and then leaving the internship as definitely very good lifelong friends. I thought was very fortunate.
Yeah, I think mine and Ben's dynamic worked out really well. We were so cohesive throughout the entire summer, and we both complemented each other very well in every conversation. So I thought me and Ben worked out really well together. And then we had the support from Riley and David Powell. They were there through us. They were there for us throughout the entire summer with anything we ever needed.
That's really awesome. So did you guys work closely with other interns or different departments within Bovitech?
I guess we didn't really work as work with other interns as much, but we definitely worked with the beef and dairy sales specialist a lot more. 𝗕𝗢𝗗𝗘𝗫 was with us when we first got to Springfield for Red Angus Junior National, and then we spent the last week with Riley Zettel going out out east and then making our way back to Wisconsin. But they were there for us throughout the entire process and were there for any questions that we ever needed.
Yeah, I agree. Whitney, you're the first intern we've been fortunate enough to have interactions with. But while we were on the road, it was always good. I can remember if we had any sort of questions about bull performance, customer performance, conversation starters, we could always reach out to Kaylin and Marcus as well in client services, and they would always be more than willing to help answer questions. And like Matt said, David Powell came out and he helped get us started at Red Angus Junior Nationals. Jumped in with us some at 𝗕𝗢𝗗𝗜𝗧 as well, and got to play with us at the Angus Golf Tournament that was sponsored by Boviteq at Angus Junior Nationals. And then Riley dropped in for a day or so at 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and we spent that last week on the road with them. To me, that was a really good time spending time with both of those gentlemen because they offer such unique and incredible different perspectives on the industry, on different industries as well. Riley comes from a dairy background and is our dairy sales specialist. And so when it comes to production livestock in that setting, he's incredibly knowledgeable and has some great ideas about the beef sector as well. Meanwhile, David Powell is no stranger to success on the Angus seed stock side and has worked for some of the biggest operations in the world. And now we're fortunate enough to have him at Boviteq. Getting to pick his brain on large management of management of large numbers of cows and how things work in a seed stock setting was awesome for a guy like me who came from a farm where we had 25 cows and a couple of head of show goats.
It's really awesome. I'm, really excited to get to have you guys on this podcast today. So glad we got to work together on that.
Absolutely.
So are there any challenges that you think the beef industry faces in terms of genetics and reproduction? And how do you think Bovitech works to help navigate these challenges?
So I think one of the biggest challenges with the beef sector, whether it be here or, we had some interesting conversations the first week about global beef production as well, is the infrastructure that it takes to get to some of these places. If we think about where the bulk of America's beef cow herd is, they're pretty remote locations. They're harder to get to, and more importantly, they're harder to put people in or get veterinarians to. I think Bovitec, working with its partnering veterinarians, does and can do an awesome job of reaching out to these folks and getting veterinarians into these areas and helping these large producers capitalize on their best cows, whether that be making replacement females or making incredible seed stock bulls for spring and fall bull sales. We can get veterinarians into those places and help those guys capitalize on their best cows and, put more money back into their operation.
Yeah, I definitely think one of the biggest challenges is getting these farmers and ranchers to adopt the new technology. A lot of them have been doing the same things for the last 75 years. So it's really hard to get them to understand what we have to offer.
Yeah, definitely. So, kind of as we're wrapping up, let's reflect on some of your experiences and some shared advice. So, what was the most rewarding part of your internship experience?
Yep, I definitely think the most rewarding part has been working for such a great company. I don't think I've ever worked with a company that's so goal driven and transparent about everything they're doing. It was an amazing company to work for. I also thought it was super rewarding to work with Ben throughout the entire summer to go from kind of knowing each other to being really good friends at the end of summer. That was really fun.
I agree with Matt. Getting to become a better friend with him was an incredible part of the opportunity, but I'll also echo what he said. I understood how Bovitech worked on the customer side of things before I came to the company. Now getting to know how things work kind of on the backside, how things work in the lab, how things work on the sales end, that was incredibly rewarding to me because then it also allowed us to do a better job of approaching customers and be more personable with customers. To me, having that experience at home with Bovitec embryos and Bovitec IVF procedures really allowed me to be more comfortable when approaching producers and saying, hey, this is what we see at the satellite that I work with. How can we continue to capitalize on genetic gains for you? How can we get you in the Bovitec system and, make your best cows and make more of your better calves?
That's awesome. Sounds like your experiences have been really great this summer. Do you have any advice for someone who's interested in applying for this internship position?
Absolutely. Jump in. That internship process, you'll do your application and you'll go through a couple rounds of interviews with some of the sales staff, and you're going to learn a lot. Regardless of if you get the internship or not, I promise that you are going to learn so much. You'll sit down and talk with some incredibly talented folks in the repro field. And even if you want to pick their brain at the end about questions, I remember asking a question at the tail end of mine, referring to where we get FSH from and why it comes from swine instead of cattle, and getting to talk with Chantel about the differences in skull thickness and how it was easier to derive that from a swine pituitary gland. I really think that the knowledge you can gain from the interview process, even if you don't get the interview, is going to be really, really valuable for you. But just like I said, apply. And you're never too old to apply as well. I was in my senior year at Kansas State the second time I applied, and was fortunate enough to get to start the internship a couple weeks there after I'd graduated. So just go for it.
Yeah, I think I'll definitely echo Ben and saying to just go out and do it. It was an amazing process from start to finish, and it was probably my favorite interview I've ever had. I've done a lot of interviews for internships, but nothing was as good as the one I had with Chantel and Riley at Denver, and just getting to sit down and talk to them and really pick their brains about stuff.
Yeah, that's some really great advice, guys. So, thank you both for sharing your stories and insights. It's clear that your work at Boviteq has had a really meaningful impact, and I wish you both the best of luck in all of your future endeavors.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.